Okay, welcome everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to the February 11th meeting of the Historic Resources Board. Would the staff please call for a roll call, please?
Martin Bernstein, Chair.
Here.
Margaret Wimmer, Vice Chair.
Here.
David Bauer.
Here.
Beth Bundenberg.
Here.
Patricia DiCiccio.
Here.
Roger Kohler.
Here.
Michael McKinnon, absent.
Okay, thank you. First on our order of any oral communications, if there are any members of the public who like to speak on any item not on the agenda, seeing no cards, we'll move on to agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Are there any? So, okay. Any changes to agenda additions or deletions?
Not this time, just to announce that the agenda was previously updated to include the Professorville walking tour. And also just to ask the chair to acknowledge the council liaison in presence today.
Will do. Thank you for that, and welcome Council Member Holman to our meeting. So thank you, and morning to Jody too. Thank you. Good. Right, next minutes approval, January of 28, 2016. Looking for a motion to approve or amend.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously of those present. Next would be a public hearing. I'll read it, the title. 1250 Bryant Street, request by Gordana Pavlovic on behalf of the property owner Gu Ho Zhu for Historic Resources Board review of proposed new additions and facade alterations at the first and second stories of an existing two-story single-family residence and construction of a new one-story secondary dwelling unit and two-car garage in the Professorville Historic District. Environmental review, the project is exempt from the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act under Class 15268 Ministerial Projects. Zoning District R1, single-family residential. Shall the staff have a report for us?
Yes, thank you. Matt Weintraub, project planner. This is the project at 1250 Bryant Avenue, requesting Historic Resource Board review. The project or the property was built in 1908 by a gentleman named George Pierce, a teacher. It is located in Professorville. It appears to qualify as a contributing property. The proposal is to rehabilitate the existing structure and expand the development for additional residential use. The historical address is 281 Embarcadero Road. This project was previously reviewed by the board in a study session on December 10th, 2015. Board members provided comments and no actions were taken at that time. So this is the formal review. The scope of work, proposed rehabilitation includes alterations and additions to the existing two-story historic residence, which I'll review in more detail, the removal and replacement of the existing garage, and the construction of a new one-story secondary dwelling unit on the property. So first we'll take a look at the history of the property. The existing historic structure was built in 1908. More than likely it was built as a square plan house without the one-story addition that we see here. However, by 1919, this one-story wing was in evidence. And we can see that this is the one-story wing that is under discussion at the moment. It did not include the second-story addition at that time. So this is the circa 1919 addition. And here is another perspective of that very simple square one-story addition with a cornice line. Within 5 years of that, by 1924, we see that there's some additional development on the property. A two-story structure has been added to the Embarcadero side, and a covered open structure has been added to the Bryant Street side. And this is what those features are. It's the two-story bay on the Embarcadero side, which includes the covered entry porch and the second-story sleeping porch, again, all of which were constructed by 1924. And here's another perspective of that second-story sleeping porch. You can see that it does have some architectural value in terms of the open eaves, the sloped roof line, and the three-part sliding sash. And here is the covered secondary entrance that was added to the Bryant Street side, also approximately 1924. So those are the more or less historic additions. Here we see the property in 1949, and it's actually in the same condition that we saw it in 1924. So there's one other addition that we're aware of, and this is the second sleeping porch that was added, and this is on the interior side. So this appears to have been added post-1949, but also exhibits architectural value in the same way that the earlier sleeping porch does, with the exposed eaves, the curved roof line, and the three-part sliding sash. So the proposed site plan is, here we see the existing historic structure with an addition to this interior side. We see that where the existing garage is now, that garage would be removed and a new garage would be constructed at the back of the property, and a new one-story secondary dwelling unit would be constructed on the property. So I'll review the changes to the historic structure. On the Embarcadero primary facade, at the covered porch, it appears that there were some later additions and alterations that would not be considered architecturally significant or historically significant, and those involve the addition of these brick and concrete steps that you see in the left-hand picture, along with the railings and this wood trellis system, none of which appears to be historic. It's clearly modern construction, sort of tacked on to the existing porch. The proposal, and clearly we see that there was wooden steps that led down from this open porch, side-facing porch, and here we can see that there's the top riser is still in existence, and the wood steps below that were removed. The current proposal is to remove all of the non-historic additions, including the brick, the concrete, the trellis, and then to actually reverse the orientation of the porch so that this side would be sealed up with windows similar to what we see on the right-hand picture. And on the right-hand side, this would be actually opened up and new wood steps would be brought down through that section. So the proposal is to remove the non-historic additions and then to reverse the orientation of that porch. At the east elevation, which is the Bryant Street elevation, the only proposed changes are to windows, and primarily involving secondary windows. So the existing art glass windows that we see here and the larger primary windows would all be unaffected. Smaller windows, such as these windows and this row of sort of irregular altered fenestration would be cleaned up, and windows that suit the larger window type would be installed, and you can see that on your plans. Would actually probably result in a more regular fenestration pattern at that elevation. Now at the north elevation, this is the elevation that's probably receiving the most change. Here we see the one-story 1908 addition and stairs structure that's been constructed in the back. The proposal is to remove all of this stair structure and to extend the one-story element further back on the property, as well as, so the one-story element would be extended this direction, and the proposal also involves adding a projecting bay at the second story, which would fill in this space, essentially, and it would be cantilevered over and post-supported. So, so this wall here would actually be the remnant of the original wall of that house. I would also note that there's some art glass windows that are located in these locations. All of those art glass windows are proposed to be saved. They would actually, they're proposed to be moved up to the second story in the proposal. And at the west elevation, which is an interior elevation, the proposal is to remove this non-historic trellis structure, as well as to expand the width of this existing bay. And this is actually the only original projecting bay on the house. It was part of the original design. So the proposal is to expand that in width while leaving it centered on the elevation. That would involve shifting this brick chimney over to some degree towards the Embarcadero side. And then there's also proposal involves adding a small square bay under the eave in this location. So to conclude, staff has determined that the project does appear to be consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards, and staff recommends at this time that, that the HRB may make a motion that it is consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Next on our normal process for public hearings is the applicant presentation. And Gordon, if you'd like to come on up and just state your name for our recorded record. And welcome.
Thank you. My name is Gordana Pavlovic. I'm the designer on this project, and Matt has done an excellent job presenting it in details. I'm sorry my voice is a bit changed because I suffer from this flu that everybody seems to have these days. I don't have very much to add to this very extensive and thorough presentation by Matt. He's been very helpful in his suggestions to maintain the historic nature of the house. I'm very happy with how we collaborated and proceeded, and I'm open to your questions if you have any.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant or staff? Roger, yes.
Am I on? Hi. Good morning. Thank you for coming here. And
Good morning.
I just had a quick question here. On existing second floor, I'm looking right down, it says, well, it would be the bedroom in the middle that pops out. And then you go to A6, page A4, and then to A6. A6 has shown all the new walls that are shaded, which I understand, but down at the would have been nice if the bedrooms had been numbered. But that same pop-out, the middle bedroom opposite, let's see, right above the word floor plan, there's a bedroom right there in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's centered on the original plan, and there's a large pop-out shown which is not shaded, so that's all new, and then the bay window's new, and the other bedroom on the left. I'm just trying to figure out what's new, what isn't new, so I guess it shows up on the exteriors that there's a change.
Yes, thank you. That's a very good catch that has escaped me. I'm sorry. That is, we kept the same windows and the same fenestration to the front, but yes, that should be showed as new.
Okay, so
Thank you.
so when we look at page 11, which is existing, I guess, or not? I'm trying to figure out. Oh, I see. Existing's above, new is below. Okay, so if we okay, well, I guess that's enough. Thank you.
Any other board members? David?
Good morning. I thank you for providing the legend about the windows, which is something, of course, we're concerned about, and in particular interested in. I noticed, though, that I'm just trying to understand this. So let's stay on page A11. On the upper elevation is existing, and the notation R in those windows is signifies they're going to be replaced. But down in the bottom elevation, wouldn't those same windows that are being replaced have those are all new, aren't they? So shouldn't, I just want to understand that those are new windows.
Yeah, that was, I struggled how to the best explain this. We are making the windows openings are going to be the same, and we are The appearance of the windows are going to be the same. The only thing that changes would be the double glaze that we're adding to the windows.
Are you going to use what in the industry is called a replacement sash package, or are you replacing the frames and the entire window system?
We will go window by window as we open them and re-inspect them. So we will try to be true to the existing in the best way possible.
So at this point, you don't, if I'm understanding what you're saying, you don't know whether you'll be replacing everything or just the sash?
We would most likely be replacing everything because we don't know the condition of the frame at the moment. Some windows are very badly damaged by dry rot and termites.
So the reason I'm asking that question is I am a proponent on this board of replacing the glass with insulated glass because I think that prolongs the life of the building because it keeps moisture and controls temperature better. But there is a significant difference between the existing profile of the frames and the windowsills between the old and the new. And that would be a rather significant change in the appearance of the outside of the building. So I would like to know about that because I think if you change all the windows out, frame and all, that you're really going to have a different look. And we'll have lost what is the characteristic double-hung sash look. So that's why I'm asking the question about whether it's sash replacement or it's frame and sash replacement.
I understand, yes.
So, do you know what manufacturer of windows you're going to use?
At the moment, we haven't gone that far, but
Okay.
I'll be happy to consult you and inform you if you would like to get involved and have some suggestions. I'd appreciate that.
Okay, I'd like to focus just on a couple of features of the new freestanding building, the secondary cottage, which is on page A13. I think in general the building is a compatible design, but I have a couple of concerns about two features. One, on the front porch, there are appear to be square wooden columns supporting the roof over the porch, which in my examination of the rest of the building seems to be unique. Now, I understand differentiation is one thing, but I think these represent a kind of a vertical line that doesn't exist on the rest of the house. So I'm finding a little trouble with that being compatible. And the other small detail is on the south elevation, there is a large picture window which is completely different than all the double-hung windows on the existing house. So my idea of compatibility would be all double-hung windows, or at least windows with a horizontal bar to replicate the double-hung look. And there are a couple on the back, too. So those, I guess I find those to be not compatible.
This is squares here, I guess.
But it's halfway.
It's halfway.
So those are my concerns about the building.
Yes, I appreciate your comments. If in situations like this, it is always a question whether to keep the balance between new and old and how much. Obviously, this building is totally different scale from the main building, and we were trying to give importance to the main structure rather than the accessory one, especially since it's going to be all the way in the back. So I tried to maintain the features of the main structure, keeping in mind that the scale is different, and still make it appear different.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Beth?
Thank you.
Let's see. I would respectfully disagree with my friend David Bauer here. I am an advocate of keeping the old glass because it has a rippled quality that is different in the reflectivity, in the way it looks, and so I am an advocate of reusing that and rebuilding the frames that are defective at this point.
Vice Chair.
Good morning.
Yes, yeah,
I just was looking at the basement, and I just had a couple questions. The basement currently is not existing, is that correct? And
That is correct. There is a partial basement under the house on the north and west side, but the east and south do not have a stand-up basement.
so you're going to shore up the existing house and then excavate the basement?
Actually, the foundation is non-existent at the moment. The house has shifted and the foundation has completely crumbled. So in order to protect the house, we will have to lift it up, dig underneath and put the new foundation, and that's where the basement came into being.
And I just was thinking that hopefully you can try to expand the below-grade patio and the side light well as much as you can. I mean, that's just a planning requirement, but it just looks like the access to the basement on the looking at the plan on the left side, it seems really narrow. Maybe somehow I mean, I forget what but hopefully you can expand it as much as possible.
Yes.
'Cause it just seems like when you
too
look out, you have an
narrow.
expanse of those windows down or the French doors down in the basement, and then to look out and just see a solid wall 3 feet away might be,
Yeah.
it'd be nice if you could get, I mean, that's a planning thing. And then I had a question then about those fireplaces. So the brick fireplace, you're gonna have to completely demolish and then probably rebuild, because you can't lift the house up and replace the foundation without, so that existing historic fireplace, I don't know if it is historic, would have to be completely removed, the masonry. There's 2 of them, I think.
Yes, there are 2 of them, and we do expect that they will be damaged during the
Yeah, you
shoring
can't-
up of the
yeah, you
house
have to
because they
remove
are unreinforced brick, but we took the pictures and
Yeah,
we will try to restore them to whatever they are right now. Hopefully they will look the same.
because it looks like also on that floor plan and the fireplace in the living room, it looks like the firebox is cantilevering over the below-grade
Basement.
patio in the basement. So you might want to figure that, how that's gonna, well, the new fireplaces don't require the foundation system that the masonry ones do, so. But that's probably also, however you treat those fireplaces that's probably materials, like maybe you end up having to do like a brick veneer or something, because you can't really do a brick. Anyway, that's just an exterior finish material that, but I think that you could probably find a brick veneer that looks similar to the existing brick.
Yes, we saved the samples and
Yeah.
we will definitely try to do that.
And then
Thank you.
the only other thought I had was, you know, the guardrails and the railings that go around, the guardrails on the balcony and the railings that go around the light wells?
Yep.
I think that's a typical wood railing, guardrail detail.
Yes.
But it seems like there's a lot of it. So I was just thinking maybe you could break that up. Maybe you can have some little brick pilasters or something and have a span of railing in between. Something because that's so much of it.
It does appear in this scale to look
Yeah.
like a lot of it because it's a small scale, so
Yeah, I know.
they look busier than they actually
But I think
should
if you
be.
could find an interesting pattern to break it up with, maybe you use the same brick on the fireplaces and you may have like a 18 by 18 inch pilaster and then put a span of railing in between. It might just look more historic, and it might pull in that detail, that material, and it might relieve the eye from this long linear expanse of railings especially on that north elevation, where there's the railings on the balcony and on the ground level. And also just the maintenance of those, especially if it's a painted wood railing, that's gonna
It
be
takes long.
a lot to maintain. I have one, trust me, I know, so. But those were my only comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Pat?
Well, I've got several of my questions answered by the rest of the board who have asked. I, too, was kind of confused and concerned about moving the fireplace and whether you would use the original materials again. And what was the primary reason for moving or extending the bay on the second floor? Was it for a matter of balance, or?
It was purely for the balance, because if you look at the roof plan of the building, there is a clear pyramid-like appearance of the roof, and we tried to keep the hip roof that follows exactly centered to the peak of the roof there. So that was the main reason to keep it all in line.
Okay. And as far as the basement is concerned, I was under the understanding that there's some problem in the city right now with getting a permit to remove all the groundwater. Or is this going to be a finished basement, or is it just to stabilize the building and put in a new foundation?
Well, the main thought was to stabilize the building, but it is going to be a finished basement, and we have a structural engineer and a soil engineer report, so it is safe as far as groundwater is concerned. This is not a flood zone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to follow up on the discussion about the rails. Thank you for providing the detail. I share with Margaret a concern about wood rails. They are extraordinarily high maintenance, and they won't last. So I would encourage you to have your client build them out of steel or something that's easier to maintain. My company and the people that designed the projects I built, abandon wood because you just can't get them to last. The paints aren't strong enough anymore to really protect the wood. And then it rots, and then you have a really serious safety issue. So I like the design, by the way, on the second floor. I think that's really quite attractive, and I think it's appropriate. But anyway, that's just a comment, not really a statement of criticism in any way.
So you think we can actually manufacture it in steel and probably have appearance of wood? That's a very useful comment. Thank you.
You can make a steel rail look exactly like a wood rail, especially from a distance. So
Okay. Thank you. That's
you
very
just have to have a
helpful.
good iron company.
Thank you.
Any other board members? Roger?
Just a few. Is this, I'm getting kind of nitpicky here, but is the stairs down to the basement, are those new?
Are we on the
Page A5.
interior or exterior?
A5?
Yes. Which stairs there?
Well, it says down. It's got a little
On the
word.
inside of the building?
Yes.
Yes, on the left there is existing stairwell. If you look at the plans on the right,
You just
to the
really-
left there is a new set of stairs going down.
You'll have to have a new set of stairs. The basement plan, you should figure out, I don't know, there's nothing shown downstairs. It's not really our purview, but the stairs shown here don't match the stairs on the upper floor. You would never, this is just, you need to look at this. I mean, I'm sort of an expert on basements. I have 6 or 7 basements right now in Palo Alto underway. So you need to get that involved and figured out. It's just not thought out, and you can't really do plans without figuring out what's in the basement. I don't know, I think you need to, when you present, there's usually a fairly normal progression of drawings, so you can figure things out easier. I think if you get into this, you need to kind of have your drawings organized in such a way that they sort of make sense. You have the existing ones in the beginning, and then in the middle is the proposed plan, and then you have the exteriors and that. This way, we have to keep going back and forth. It's a very random set of drawings, but that's not our purview. So that's my only comment. I tend to agree with everything that's already been said by everybody else.
Beth, do you have your light on? No.
Yes. I am looking at the stairs there, the existing stairs on the back of the building, which are clearly non-historic, really a just cobbled up job, and so that I think that in terms of whatever goes in there, it looks like it will be muchly improved in safety, in the way it looks, so that I would support the continuation of that plan.
Great, thank you. I have a couple comments also. And first of all, I just want to say high praise for Gordon. I've seen your work published in some of the local newspapers. And one thing I noticed in the when they were presented in color, you do a marvelous job on coloration. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. I also want to appreciate staff planner Matt providing the Sanborn map plans. And it really kind of shows, well, it does show the existing profile of the house, the plan. And a couple board members, and Gordon, you mentioned that the existing, I guess it'd be the western, the south wall, where the existing bay window is on the interior side. And what that, the 1919 and 1924 plan tends to indicate is, just as was made reference already by staff and board members, the almost square shape of the existing building. And so that's probably the most essential aspect of the existing floor plan. And then when I took some time to take a look at the existing floor plan versus the proposal, the proposed, starting on the second floor, so we can look at page A6, for example. Mm-hmm. So as already mentioned, on the south side, the two bedrooms, the master bedroom and middle bedroom. So starting with the master bedroom, so there's a bay window pop out there, okay, and so that seems, reasonable thing to do because it's distinct from the square mass of the building. When I look at the middle bedroom on the south side, you mentioned that you're proposing to widen that bay, the pop-out, for a symmetrical purpose. However, the existing bay is non-symmetrical, but it's historic, goes back to 1919. And one thought I had about that is, I see no problem in expanding the size of the bedroom as you're proposing on the plan. But just as you've done with the master bedroom, where there's the pop-out is not the same dimension as the bedroom, if that same detail can occur on the middle bedroom, which would retain the 1919 feature, still have exactly the same quality of natural light coming into the bedroom, but still you're able to maintain the new bedroom size. So that's one way, and I drew a little sketch of that, and I'll pass it to the board members so they'll see that too. I have a few more comments before I pass the sketch. Just taking a look at it, but that way I think you would keep the same programmatic goal for your client, same quality of light in the bedroom, same size of the bedroom, so all the program goals have been achieved, and yet it retains the 1919 feature. So there's an example where that would really keep it even more consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. We're not touching historic things. Do you understand that? I'll pass the sketch to the board and you'll see the sketch too. So that's one comment on that middle bedroom on the south side. On that theme, looking at the master bedroom, we have facing on the let's see, to the left of the page, are you calling that north or, let's see, on the back of the house, to the left of the page on A6, is that considered north or east?
North.
North, okay, yeah. So on the north, so there's on the second floor, there's addition of the master bedroom, and then the master bathroom pops out into there too. And what I was looking at too, on the same theme of how do you keep the historic square of the mass and still achieve what your goals are for your client. And I did a little, I'll explain it in words and I'll show a sketch to the board members, and I have the sketch for you too, for you to take a look at. If we treat the master bedroom north addition as a pop-out bay situation again, again, that starts retaining the historic quality of the existing massing of the house. And then I scaled your plans of the master bathroom and then the secondary bathroom next to it. So you got toilet room, double sink, shower or bath, and then the small room, shower and bath, toilet. I've got a sketch, so you'll see it all. That when I took your dimensions, I could actually see that whole bathroom setup shifted southward so that the master bedroom pop-out is acting as a pop-out rather than a mass that ties into the existing sleeping porch. The sketch is going to show everything I'm talking about. The point of what I've been looking at and thinking about is there a way to get your program unchanged but still keep more of the historical box? That also means not touching the existing chimney and whatever. The expense is really not part of our purview, but it's an easier thing there. Anyway, those are my comments on the second floor. I've got comments on the first floor also. Let's see, I think, why don't we start with the second floor, and maybe I'll just pass the sketch here, and then you'll have a chance to see it too. So, those just illustrate we don't have an overhead projector. Okay.
And per your drawing.
I need your mic on. Need your mic on?
If I understand your drawing, the chimney would then not have to be relocated.
In that plan, it would not have to be relocated, correct?
Thank you.
Okay. So what I've highlighted on this drawing, and I'll give a chance for the applicant to see too. Yeah, okay. Yeah, second floor. So I think it might be quicker rather than asking. I'll just do an annotation. So here's the addition.
Excuse me, point of order. We should probably make copies of what you are sharing so that everyone can be looking at that at the same time. So recommend that we take a 5-minute recess so that staff can make the copies.
Okay, that sounds fine. This was done about 1 o'clock this morning, and so good. Okay.
Maybe you could give them your other drawing too at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you for that request. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll make copies here that way. Good. Thank you so much. Good. good interaction between the applicant and the board and staff. Gordon, please continue.
Martin, thank you for this suggestion. I would like to point out that Matt had similar suggestion when we were going through this process, and that I went through about 2 days of redesigning. As wonderful as the idea appears at first, if you continue drawing the existing walls on the second floor, you would realize that this moving of the bathroom creates a very narrow entrance to a very long corridor to 2 bedrooms and the bathroom on the second floor. Therefore, it just completely deprives the interior of the house from the light that is shed elsewhere. So the second thing, we already established that the fireplace will need to be rebuilt. Therefore, moving of the fireplace is not really creating additional problem. But I must say that this late-stage redesign does create a problem for the rest of the plans that we have done, and it is not really improvement for the interior. It actually degrades the interior space of the house to the point where my client really will not receive the wonderful space that they have at the moment with the present design. So we went through this phase of redesigning and concluded that the other part is, the present proposal is the best.
Thank you for that. Okay. Just as a comment, I did look at that. I mean, I see the reason for your, on the second floor, the curved wall there.
Yes.
On the original tracing you have there, which is, we have a photocopy of it here. Let's see.
Pardon me,
yeah.
Chair Bernstein,
Yes.
could you tell us which page you're referring to?
Yeah,
There's
it's the
3
one that's called,
diagrams.
A6.
it's called existing second floor.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. It's the sketch that the public is now has. Gordon, you're talking about the natural light going into that hallway leading to the 2 bedrooms?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. When I did that sketch, I guess I wasn't seeing that would reduce.
May I show you the continuation of the walls
Sure,
of the
sure.
second floor, and then it will become clearer.
And thank you for entertaining this conversation.
Yes, because I went through the same ingenious idea
Yeah.
about
Pardon me, all the discussion should occur through the microphones, so thank you for providing that material. And if Chair Bernstein could describe the material that you're viewing.
Sure, of course, yeah. Okay, what the applicant has just presented to us is the continuation of the bedrooms on the north side. When I superimpose my sketch on the applicant's presentation there, looks like there's about a 12-inch difference in the length of that.
Yes, which will create an opening of only 30 inches to
Yes, I
enter the
understand.
corridor
Mm-hmm.
towards the 2 bedrooms and the bathroom, which is really a bare minimum for a large house.
Yeah, okay, great.
But thank you, I'm glad to see that you had the same idea as I did.
Well, we're probably all wearing the same hats.
It's a compliment.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, thank you for that. And then, as far as do you have a comment on the middle bedroom where I'm showing keeping the existing historic bay rather than making a wider bay? You still keep the same amount of window space, and you could still keep the same size of that bedroom.
Actually, there is the same thing that is happening in the corridors. If you look at the corner that the bay creates and pointed very sharp 90-degree corner just as you are entering the bay to the bed. Then we are creating, again, a very narrow space, about 28 inches between the corner of the bed and the corner of the wall, which would mean that you really have to scoot sidewise into the bay where the bed is, which again, architecturally is. When you work on the larger scale and do more detailing, then all these problems surface out. That's why we concluded that widening the bay and centering it to the peak of the roof really would be the best for the building.
Yeah. The gist of the comments that I've been thinking about since last night is that we have a historic massing here, so that's the intent, and then you've got your contemporary concerns for your client, so I understand our discussion. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. All right, let's move to the sketch I provided for the first floor. If the members of the public, they'd be able to see that also. This is the first floor sketch. See, that'd be superimposed on the new floor plan, so that would be A. Turning to my pages here.
Are we talking about page A5?
A5, yes.
Yes.
Okay. You're on the covered front porch entry, so you're showing new stairs heading east, I believe, or south, or I don't know what direction that is.
On the main entrance?
Yes, on the main.
Yes.
Yeah,
We are
facing
reversing.
Bryant Street.
Yes,
Yeah.
facing Bryant, yes.
And then
Pardon me, correction, that's Embarcadero side.
on the Embarcadero side, correct. So you're proposing adding new steps on that porch, heading toward Bryant Street. Yeah. And then adding windows on the opposite side.
Basically just reusing the windows that have been already on the
Sure.
Bryant side and
Yeah.
putting them on towards the garden, yes.
Yeah, good. And removing the non-historic brick and landing that's out there now.
Correct.
And removing that trellis that was out there now. So one suggestion based on my sketches, what if go ahead and add the new steps facing toward Bryant Street and retaining the historic, don't add windows on the opposite side of that. Just in the spirit of keeping the original front porch there. So that front porch would be open on both sides as opposed to that. So that'd be a concern of keeping some more historic fabric of what was there. So that was the suggestion of that. And then also on that sketch that I provided for the first floor, it just shows the new addition in the back of the house there. And I think that massing is fine. So, okay. So you can choose to comment on that suggestion for the front porch, keeping the historic stairs there.
Thank you. Actually, if that is a nice idea, and actually if we can continue with the same thought, what do you think about the little service entrance facing Bryant Street? If we would extend, if we would provide the steps on the other side, so we have the symmetrical, the same thing as you were doing on the front entrance, doing on the side entrance too, having 3 steps come towards the south, would that be? Yeah, that might be actually, that seems a very nice idea, thank you.
Okay, all right, good. Yeah, okay.
Can we add that too?
Okay, any board members have any comment on that? Okay, seems like there's at least 3 board members who are liking that idea. Okay. All right.
What is the historic plan, I think? Is that okay?
I will, I'll respond if the board wants me to provide a comment.
Sure. We're keeping the public hearing open for interactive conversation. Yes, yes, Matt.
I think the board's comments appear to be consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards.
Continue with then the third sketch I provided. It's called the roof plan. the applicant and the board and members of the public have that available. I'm holding that up. Yes, okay. So that was just going back to the impact on the second floor. You can then see that was just to illustrate the intent of my comments, is that any new work on the second floor ends up as a little pop-out bay rather than a larger mass. You've heard the applicant, Gordon, explain from the quality of light for her client's concerns about why her plan is being proposed. Okay, any other comments, discussion? Margaret?
I have a couple more comments. So I was also looking back at the basement plan, and it looks like you have some basement windows that are facing Bryant Street. However, they're not showing up or indicated on the front elevation or on the Bryant Street elevation. So I don't think, because you're not permitted to have a light well on probably either the Embarcadero side or the Bryant Street side, so I don't know how you would achieve those windows.
Oh, I see.
And it looks like the finished floor is roughly 2 feet 4 inches above the outside grade. And I think you're probably, even though I don't know if you're proposing to lift the house at all. Probably not. I don't think you're allowed to. So you have to work with the existing grade. I don't know if you'd be able to fit those windows in and have the daylight fit where, above that foundation wall. And I just wanted to make another comment. I know that sometimes we look at these plans and they're probably still in somewhat of a schematic design phase, but I can assure you, once you start the structural engineering, which, have you started that yet?
Yes.
Because that'll have sometimes a big impact on some of these things that we're looking at. For instance, that basement foundation wall, you might not be able to have those windows facing the Bryant Street side anyway, because structurally they couldn't. That's a difficult, expensive detail, and it doesn't look like the windows would be able to daylight well enough above the grade to achieve the light that you're wanting. So I just was questioning that, and I wasn't seeing any indication of those windows on the proposed floor plans. So I just want to make that comment. But and then another thing, I thought maybe you could speak a little bit about your color board and your color choices, and maybe also talk about how you might be incorporating these color choices into the two new structures, which would be the detached garage and the cottage. And I did, when I was looking at the cottage plans, I did notice that you are incorporating some of the existing art windows into the cottage, which I think that's kind of a, maybe not nice detail. It doesn't matter, but I just was noticing it, so I was just making a comment on it. But I was just thought maybe you could speak for a moment about your color selections, and maybe a little bit about how you're going to create a connection between the new structures on the building and the historic main structure.
Yes, of course. Thank you. So the color scheme for this house came from studying the neighborhood and colors of the neighborhood houses. And then these are colors that Sherwin-Williams historic restoration colors come from. The reddish brown of just the narrow sashes around the windows, and if you look at the existing house front door, that's where that color comes from, which would be an accent, and it corresponds also to the brick chimneys of the fireplaces in the house. The porcelain white is actually present throughout the whole professorial neighborhood, and we address the fascia and the soffits and the main columns of the house. And the earth tone, the adobe type paint is actually very earthy, neutral color that would become light up with the greenery and the east side sun of the location of the house. The idea for the cottage and the garage is really just to go to the same scheme, but the deeper colors, so they fade away from the main house. So the main house is actually the one that has the presence in the neighborhood. That was the thought. As you know, the house is surrounded with many, many trees, and the arborist has kept most of them. We have his report. So everything would be seen through the greenery and the bark of the trees.
Okay. Any other comments? Beth? Oh, excuse me. See if Planner Matt has any comment, please. Matt, please.
Thank you. Just to clarify the scope of work as staff understands it, there was a previous proposal to, with the window configuration, to take art glass windows from the historic structure and put them into the new residence. Staff advised that that would not be consistent with the standards. My understanding is that the current proposal is to retain all the existing art glass in the historic building, and so what you're seeing is probably a remnant from the previous proposal on the secondary dwelling unit. So just to clarify that.
That is correct. Thank you, Matt.
Do we have any images of it, that art glass? Is it like stained glass,
Yes.
or what is it?
Just for context, on the building, they're actually located at the interior elevation. They're not actually visible from the public right of way at the moment, and they're at the first floor. So there's this row of 3 art glass. The central one has actually been replaced, is not an original. So there's 2 art glass windows here, and then this double hung art glass. And there's, on the primary Bryant facade, there's also these 2 art glass windows flanking the existing chimney, which is not proposed to be altered.
So those windows would
So these
be
windows
maintained in the
would-
same
would be
location
retained in this,
in
yeah,
the
essentially with no
proposed plan?
change.
Okay.
And the art glass windows are not, of course, proposed to have their glass changed. Those would not be switched, of course, to double paint. They would be retained as is.
Okay, Beth. Beth, you had some comments?
Yes, I simply wanted to support your color palette. I think it is very tastefully chosen for that corner and repeats some nice things down Embarcadero a little further. So, you know, I think that it will be a very calm, related to the earth kind of color scheme.
Thank you. I'd like to continue on Board Member Bauer's comments about the windows and the glass. If you look on page A11, south elevation facing Embarcadero. On the second floor of the front sleeping porch, we'll call it, you're showing all the windows on that second floor of the front entry porch to be replaced. And then on the new elevation down below, on these drawings, we're not seeing any indication of, for example, we've had projects in the past where shop drawings come through with the mutton bars where they're like, 2 inches wide, something like that. So on this house, I think they're probably like, 3/4 inch or something like that, just looking at photos. So there's nothing specified on this drawing. So that would be important for, there's no legend on that elevation too. So are those brand new windows? Because up above it says you're replacing them. So those are brand new windows, is that correct?
Yes, they will be.
Okay,
brand
yeah,
new
so
double
what's,
glazed.
from a historic concern, what's the width of those mutton bars so the mutton bars don't become distraction from the historical quality of the building? Yeah, just not specified, that's why I'm asking.
Okay, yes, that's a very good point, Martin, and we will, as I said earlier, we will maintain the existing and look for the windows that will look
Right.
as much as possible as the existing, of course.
Sure, good. And then also on, in terms, and then Board Member Bauer mentioned about the glass type of it. So let's see, so it's being replaced, so I think you mentioned those might be double pane, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, all right, and then, so then there's, the double pane, I mean, it instantly changes, I know you have, there's an important need for energy conservation. I believe from the State Historic Building Code, there can be some exemption, I believe, or some modification of Title 24, unless that's just a strict program requirement of the client that those be insulated glass. But there is some potential relief from Title 24 requirements for glass. So if you want to retain that as single pane, that's something that you can consider.
You're referring to the windows on the porch, the
Yes.
front entrance?
Yeah, up on the second
Uh-huh.
floor?
Yes, on the second floor, not
Yeah,
on the ground.
yeah, the first floor, you're keeping the existing windows.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. The second floor doesn't,
Yeah.
anyway, so that's something that you could explore, that those could be single if you chose that you're satisfied with that.
Should I comment on this?
Yeah, you can comment.
I would prefer, and studying the noise level on the Embarcadero,
yes.
the double pane window would extensively
Yes.
improve the interior of and the life quality of the client. So I would really prefer to have the double glazed window because it's a very unfortunate
Sure, in
location.
1919, we did not have the automobile traffic
Yes,
that we have
had
right
the
now.
carriages.
You are correct. That is a new environmental fact. You are correct about that. I understand. There was another house that we looked at on Embarcadero where I think they were adding triple pane, and they said, yeah, because the constant noise, and so it affects the quality. I understand. Good.
Yes, all the hotels in Paris now have triple glazed
That-
windows
that
because
is
of the
that is
noise
correct.
level.
That's right.
Yeah.
So so the main point is if the mutton bars dimension, you assume that would be critical. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, I will.
And you are using mutton bars rather than simulated divided light?
Yes,
Yeah.
not simulated,
Yeah.
absolutely not,
Good.
yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, and then the brick so the brick is going to be brand new brick, correct? Yeah.
Actually, engineer is very hopeful that we can reuse the existing brick. Of course, we don't know anything till it actually happens, but
Yeah.
I will try to reuse the brick that we have there.
Okay, yeah. All right. So if it ends up being brand new brick, then it can look like brand new.
I hope not. We
Yeah.
will definitely try
Yeah.
to make it
Good.
be consistent with the coloring
Yeah.
of the existing
I
brick.
did a project, actually, we use sand cast brick, and it's brand new brick. It does not look like brand new brick, so so we can get to that point. Anyway, so you're hearing the comment about the brick as part of the facade, too.
Yes, it's a very big presence to the facade, so I will, if you have input on how to find the brick that doesn't look like
Yeah,
brand new,
Peninsula
I will
Building Materials
definitely-
has sand cast brick.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, good. Okay, in different colors, too.
It is still possible to buy 100-year-old bricks. Done it several times.
Okay, yeah, good, yeah,
That would be the best, I think.
yeah, good, okay. All right. Any other questions? Board Member Bauer.
So I appreciate, Martin, all the work you've done, but I'm cognizant of the fact that in the staff report, all of the review is voluntary. In other words, there is no compliance issue here in terms of historic materials. I'd like to look at the elevations, starting on A9. As I understand the plans, the the new elevation is, the existing is at the top of the page, and the new elevation is at the bottom. And when I look at the bottom elevation on this page, every single window is either new or moved. If you go to page A10, the two windows on the new elevation that are on either side of the fireplace that are designated AE, which is art glass to exist, and the two underneath the porch are the only two windows on that facade that are not new or moved. If you go to page A11, the entire set of windows on this elevation, except for the two attic dormer windows, are new. And if you go to A12 and look at the bottom elevation, every single window on that elevation is new, and we have no details. And I can see this building being, looking when it's completed, like a brand-new project that was built, not in a historic district, but simply any place outside of one. And it would not retain any of the characteristics except for some familiar roof lines and dormers. And I just wonder how we can be reviewing this project with, and meet the number, Secretary of Interior standard number 3, which is compliant according to staff, but it said each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. And we're reviewing a project that's going to look completely different. Now, it will be reminiscent of what's there. So I just don't know really where we go with this. I don't know what our role is as a board with limited information about what's being proposed, and when all of the review is voluntary. I mean, no matter what comment we make today, the owner has the right to do whatever they want. Now, I'm not being critical of the presentation or the drawings. This is a problem with our ordinance, and I think it's something that as a board we need to take up at a different thing.
Matt?
Thank you. Just to clarify that under the ordinance, the board's responsibility is to review building permits for exterior alterations within Professorville and to provide those comments to the owner and the applicant for the owner and applicant's benefit. So that's really the purpose is, this is the opportunity for the board to share the board members' expertise and professional opinions with the applicant before the applicant then decides to pull the building permits. So it is a great opportunity to share information with the applicant, and the applicant is here and willing to listen to that. Thank you.
Pat?
I agree with a lot of what David has just brought up. On the other hand, I think this building, in respect of many that we've reviewed, is in even more deplorable, unkept condition over so many years. I mean, I live in a building that's built in 1906, and it's in wonderful original conditions, so it's possible. But if this building isn't restored in some manner, and maybe it's going to have more new windows, if you look at the few photos, there is already so much rot that it might look new, but it might look better than having to be bulldozed if it was left uncared for any longer. I would hope that you will be able to retain the original brick and as many of the original windows. And of course the art glass, I mean, for sure. I also like Martin's idea of the porch open on both sides, though it wasn't original. It's done on the building that I live in originally, and even following that same theme for the other porch. I think it is going to look spectacular, and I hope maybe you can save more of the windows. I would agree on that too, but there's also Embarcadero. There's a lot of compromise that I think has to be accepted.
Any other comments from the board before we move on to members of the public? Okay. All right. I'd like to open up the public hearing now to any speakers from the public. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the applicant if you'd like to have any closing comments before we close the public hearing. So.
Thank you to the members of HRB for all the comments, and I really appreciate them, especially since you have such a long experience in reviewing different buildings throughout the city. I also would like to thank Matt Weintraub for a very useful and meaningful collaboration that he has shown throughout the process. I'd like you to also have the faith in the professional expertise that I had, and believe that I will try to maintain as much of the existing as possible and improve it, as Mrs. Diccio has suggested. And yes, this building needs some tender loving care. It's about to fall down, so thank you for letting me start working on it.
Okay, I'd like to close. Matt, yes, someone from the staff or Councilmember Holman?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple of comments that from someone who has to answer to the public for what's happening to that building, I think Vice Chair Wimmer brought up some questions that I think are important, or seem important to just put out there for the board's consideration. So, and I apologize, I didn't get to look at the plans until last night either. But it seems like there are a number of things that are lacking in the plan set that's in front of the public and you all this morning. And I certainly have no concern. I think just from demeanor and everything else, I think the applicant's architect has every good intention. I will say, though, that there are some things that just seem to be, you know, even with good intentions, sometimes there's a conflict and a tension that arises between an architect and a contractor. And so, and yes, the role is advisory. I absolutely concur with what Matt said previously. It is advisory, but the best advice and the best guidance that this board can give is what the role is. And so, for instance, on A11, it says replace asphalt shingle roofing, but it doesn't say with what. For instance, there's some details like that. The question about muttons, you know, and the double pane windows that are going to be replaced. There are a lot of areas where it'll say R for remove window, but then it doesn't have an N where a new window's going in. There's no window plan, so you don't know what the windows are going to look like. There are a number of things like that that seem to be missing. So whether this project or a future project or something else, oh, another thing Vice Chair Wimmer brought up is the house going to be lifted or not? And a lot can happen as a result of that. You know, comments about the brick. It didn't find anywhere where it said any fireplace was going to be removed. It turns out now that one's going to be retained. Is that possible if the building is going to be removed? So it sounds like maybe it isn't going to be lifted, I mean. And then the kinds of brick that, as Board Member DeSico said, like if the board wants to indicate what that is. So it seems like there are a lot of details that the board might want to comment on that might help ensure what the outcome is, to at least to the best extent that is in the purview of this board, that seem to be not indicated on the plan set. Again, and I trust the intention of the architect. I have no reason to doubt it. That said, in the field, a lot of things happen. And so the more specific you can be in your guidance to the applicant, the applicant's architect, the contractor, and to building when they're reviewing plans seem to be well advised.
Thank you. I want to open up the public hearing for a second so I could ask Gordon a question. On the, I meant to ask that question. It says replace asphalt shingle roofing. Do you have a response of what that replacement material would be?
It would be, again, asphalt shingle that has 3D dimensional look and black one. Mm-hmm. As I said, we haven't specified one, but it would look better than what the existing one looks.
Great. Okay, thank you for that.
have one last comment, just that I
Yes.
haven't really said anything. I mean,
Roger,
I
yes.
basically, I just don't know how you can approve a set of plans without a basement plan. Where are the light wells, what's going down there? That has a huge impact on the exterior of the home. So to just say it's all going to work out, not that we have even any say about the inside of the basement, but I think when I'm looking at it, the plan says it's only, well, it's like possibly 28 inches above grade. So there's no real room to get any windows in there. So, I know the reason for the plan of the basement would be to have what impact it has on the exterior of the buildings in terms of windows and light well.
So based on staff's understanding, the basement excavation would not impact the exterior appearance of the building. So there wasn't a detailed floor plan required for the basement. Really, what's subject to the board's review is exterior alterations, and there were no exterior alterations proposed as a result of the basement excavation. Building's not proposed to be lifted. No additional windows are proposed on the elevations. So at this point, it's part of the development proposal, but it's not part of something that would affect something that the board would review based on staff's analysis anyway. Thank you.
Okay, I understand.
Okay. Picking up on continuing that, however, the basement floor plan on page A7 is showing quite a length of windows on the basement floor plan, page A7. If you subtract the floor joist thickness and then what's left, I guess I'm going to open up the public hearing again. Were all those windows, Gordon, are you planning, would there be light wells on the?
No.
Oh, so then the size of that window will be,
Yes,
how
I'm
many
sorry,
inches?
I should have replied to Mrs. Weimer earlier.
Yeah.
The Bryan Street windows are actually just pieces of glass that are 12 inches high because client wanted to have some light into the basement, but they are not windows. They are drawn as windows. I'm sorry, this is an omission
Yeah, okay.
that in many, many interpretations of the plans just went
didn't
by.
follow.
So it's not possible to have the windows. As you've noticed, the building is only 28 inches above ground, and we are not changing the height or elevating it any further. So
All right.
apart from the below-grade patio on the west side and the window well on the north side, there are no other window openings. This is an omission, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
One last question we've discovered. So the existing is the existing brick fireplace going to sit on top of the sliding windows in the basement here? On page A7, there's a dotted line. Is that the fireplace?
Yes, this
It
is
sits
the
on top of the window?
Yes, it is cantilevered. It is like an overhang above the
So it's
sliding
not brick,
doors.
it's not a brick fireplace then?
I'm sorry?
It's not a brick fireplace, is it?
Well, it is going to be brick fireplace, but this new rebuilt fireplace is going to have a concrete base, I assume, which is going to act as cantilever. The
So
structure
there's
is
a-
in,
Wait a minute. So you're cantilevering a concrete slab out to hold up the fireplace?
I should really leave this to the structural engineer,
Well,
but the thought was
It's not
that-
going to happen. I mean, the concrete has to go down to the floor, to the basement. So, not that it's a big deal to me, but that's, yeah, it's going to be a gigantic, so you take out all those windows there, I mean, God. I'm just frustrated.
If I could just make a comment about this. 6 years ago, I built a 3-story masonry fireplace, and it was supported by a concrete, the fireplace started at the first floor, there's a basement below. There was a substantial concrete foundation under the entire fireplace, and we cantilevered the hearth, and that was a big deal. That was an 8-inch thick slab, and it's a lot of steel. You're not going to cantilever a real masonry fireplace. Furthermore, you can't get a masonry fireplace to meet the structural calculations. You can try, but you're going to build it with cinder block grouted. It's going to be like a solid concrete box with brick on the inside, brick on the outside. And that was 6 years ago. I don't even know what the standards are now, but this.
You know, you can't even put in a wood-burning fireplace now unless this is.
Well, if it's there.
If it's
You can
there.
replace it.
Okay.
Anyway, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't mean to sound like I'm scolding, I'm not. But I just know from my experience as a builder that this is not practical.
I see.
Yeah. Okay, let's, just as you've heard, is that our purview is to give advice on a project that comes before us that has this historical significance. So, good. Okay, I think, thank you, Gordon, for all your comments and interactions with us. Why don't we move on then to close the public hearing, and then for any motions, recommendations by the board. Beth, is your hand on the buzzer there? No.
I'll just, a quick, since we're talking about fireplaces, as
Yeah.
I'm looking at the picture of the fireplace that's there now, and then the one that's proposed, I'd rather see the one that was there before. I mean, that's a really nice stepping fireplace. And this is looks weird to have the fireplace chimney so close to the little gap between the wall. The existing one's much nicer.
This fireplace is not the one that
Oh, it isn't?
Matt, yes.
Thank you, Chair Bernstein. Just to let the board know that I'm available to provide a consolidated review of the comments that the board has made for the board's consideration when the board is ready to consider a motion.
Okay, good. Okay, Roger, your light's on. You want to continue? Okay, good. All right, I'd like to ask the board for any motions or recommendations. Let's see, we can continue. If you have more to discuss, we'll discuss. Good.
So the public hearing is now closed?
Correct,
and this
yes.
is,
So it's back to the board for recommendations, motions.
Okay. So I'd like to, I would like to review the standards for rehabilitation that staff has provided, and just make a comment about them. So it's on page 4 of our staff materials. I think that the property, number 1 certainly is consistent as staff analyzes it. I disagree with number 2 being consistent. I think the removal of historic materials and the alteration of features, as I pointed out just in the windows, and as Councilman Holman has articulated in other areas, I think that makes this a non-consistent application. And I think it's just a disagreement with, I just disagree with staff's interpretation. Number 3, each property should be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. I think by the time this project is built, this project will no longer be a representation of its time, place, and use. Its place, certainly, but not its time. It'll look like a modern house, and I use that in the broadest sense, because we don't have details about what the windows will look like, what the roofing material is going to be. There's no stucco material finish on this, and there are at least 2 different types of stucco finishes on this house. We have, as a parenthetical comment, at the Palo Alto Art Center building across the street from here, we use stucco finish as a way of differentiating the new addition from the existing building. And also the fireplace material, which has been brought up, we can't really, they're not going to be able to use the real brick that's there. It's too much weight. Maybe they'll figure out a way to do it, but it would be extraordinarily expensive. So I think for those reasons that, again, I don't think that number 3, the project is compliant under number 3. I think the rest of them, I'm in agreement with staff's representation. So that's my comment before we do motions. So I wouldn't support staff's recommendation as presented.
Beth?
And I also think that on Secretary of Interior Standards number 6, that we have heard that a number of deteriorating historic features would be replaced rather than repaired.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other comments? Looking for recommendations or motion? Staff member Matt.
Thank you. So in the spirit of the purpose of the municipal code ordinance for the board to provide comments to the applicant in terms of consistency with the standards, I would recommend that the board make a motion that the project may be found consistent with the standards subject to conditions that the board has recommended today. And I would like to provide the board with my what I've understand to be the comments that I've heard from the board in terms of making adjustments that would allow it to be consistent. So the comment that I believe I've heard is to implement second-story additions and new bays as pop-outs underneath existing eaves rather than as additions that would affect the existing eaves or result in new roof structures. I believe that is the comments that I've been hearing from board members. I believe we've also heard the comment that allowing the porches to be altered in a way that would allow dual access or two-sided access to both of the porches is acceptable. That would involve reconstructing the historic steps at the Embarcadero Street side. Also in relation to construction of and expansion of second-story bays, the comment that the existing brick chimneys should remain essentially as is, and that there's not actually a need to relocate the one chimney that's proposed to be relocated. There's also comments that to the greatest extent feasible, all the existing window frames, sashes, and glazing should be retained, with the recognition that certainly the glazing in the standard type of windows probably needs to be replaced to provide noise protection, and that some of the frames and sash and perhaps even the frame materials may need to be replaced, but that there's maintaining those as much as possible is consistent with the standards. And there was a particular comment about the sleeping porch windows as being unique in terms of their divisions and the three-part operation, and that those should remain as unchanged as possible. Pardon me while I just go down my list. Also, the comment that the wood railings around the light wells should be, the applicant should consider using a modern material such as steel, and also breaking up the sort of monolithic massing of those fences so that it doesn't appear to be sort of a monolithic feature. On the secondary dwelling unit, it was noted that the entry columns may be seen as conjectural and or not compatible with the horizontal massing of that unit. So I believe the comment was perhaps not include those entry columns, as well as consistently use double hung window fenestration in that secondary dwelling unit rather than a mix of double hung and picture windows. Believe those are all the comments that I've written down. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a comment about the, excuse me, the dimension of the mutton bars. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And also that any window replacement that does occur should maintain the appearance, materials, and design and operation of the existing windows to the greatest extent feasible.
Very good. Thank you for that summary. Yes, Pat. Karen Holman, please.
Very good summation, and thank you. And there was also agreement to the color board, and how is that incorporated? Because there's no indication here. Is there an ID number to go with that color board? And then there was a question about the asphalt shingle roofing. How would that be captured? What's desired there?
So actually the color board was part of the application materials that staff has. It may not have been referenced in the report, but it is part of what we reviewed. So and it is part of what the board has reviewed, and I believe the board has provided comments that the color scheme appears to be compatible, so that comment's been provided to the applicant.
The reason I go there is because I remember there's another house, sorry for this, but there's another house in Professorville that the color ended up being very different. And what the board had looked at and desired was not reflected in the motion. So the owner was allowed to paint the house in the old color they wanted. So that's why I'm a little sensitive to that one.
Thank you. Staff's, how this application would proceed is, so the board reviews the proposal, and then the applicant then has an opportunity to apply for the building permits for that proposal. If the building permit proposal is different in any way than what the board reviewed and or different than their comments, then essentially that proposal needs to again be reviewed by the board. So if there was a proposal to come in with building permits and a different color board that was inconsistent with what the board had reviewed or recommended, then that would be subject to re-review by the board.
Thank you. Right, bringing it back to the board for recommendations or motions.
May I just point out that the reference, the paint reference is on the back of the board. There is a list with the paint references and numbers that I have included. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it gives it specifies the color. Yeah, good. Thank you. Okay, recommendations, motions? Anybody? Okay, I'll start crafting one and see if we get any support and or comments. So I'd like to move that that the proposed project meets several of the standards of rehabilitation for this project, but does not meet all of them to a degree where the board, that the consistency is not strong enough to say that they meet all of the standards, and particularly standard number 3 as far as alterations. That the idea of the pop-outs, or the additions on the, particularly on the second floor, I think are too much of a, or go too far from the intent of the standards. And therefore, that the project is not entirely consistent with the standards.
Standard 2.
This is a difficult motion to make. Yeah. Board Member Bauer.
So thank you, Chair Bernstein, for making that motion. If
Excuse me, but I think Matt wants to chime in. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
Thank you. Just a brief point of order. The chair or the motion maker may actually propose to make the motion and adopt the conditions as recommended by staff as previously listed, and that would include all those items.
Yeah, thank you for that that comment. It's very helpful. And then to incorporate then the conditions of and comments that the staff has mentioned to incorporate those comments into the plans, then that would then bring the project into conformance with the standards. Okay. So the motion would be to incorporate the summary of our comments.
I was going to suggest that we include some language that makes it clear that the board doesn't see this as a fatal project, but that with additional information about the things I articulated that staff has on their list, that this could be considered compliant, but that we could not determine whether it's compliant because of lack of details. And so if those details would come back to the board, demonstrating that this is indeed compliant, then I think we would have a more favorable review.
So there's a couple ways that the board could proceed with that. The board could leave that up to staff's judgment in terms of reviewing the building permits, or the board could actually recommend what those details should be in order to recommend that it be compliant with the standards and avoid a future hearing. So if there's a detail you're not seeing, the board may recommend what that detail should be. For instance, replace asphalt shingle siding, asphalt roofing with new asphalt roofing would be compliant with the standards, for instance. Thank you.
So there's, go ahead, Board Member Bauer.
Okay, so I'll just take one example, and that's the windows. Traditional double-hung windows, as we're looking at on the screen, are set back into the wall. The plane of the center plane of the window operation, that's between the two sash, usually right in the middle of the wall, and that creates depth to the wall. They have sills on them that actually project beyond the face of the stucco, and they have trim around them that doesn't exist on a modern window. Modern windows are square boxes. Now, you can create this look, and I've done that in projects I built in the past, but that's not a given. And so those are the kinds of details that would have to be provided so that we could see the difference. Furthermore, if you look at this picture, you can see on the upper sash, traditionally, the upper sash has an ear on the bottom. I think that's the term. I can't remember. I'm sorry, I'm having,
OG lug.
What's that?
It's an OG lug.
Yeah, exactly. And in San Francisco, they will require that on a building. At any rate, that's the kind of detail that needs to be provided. And so, should you want the board to actually go through and make a detailed list of those things? Isn't that what the designer and the owner should bring to the board?
So staff's recommended condition, based on the comments that I've heard from the board members, is that the board may recommend that the project may be consistent if the windows, if work on the windows retains all the existing, the existing frames, the trim, the sashes to the greatest extent feasible. I think that particular comment, again, the board's role here is to provide comments and advice to the applicant based on what you're seeing. And so I think to provide the comment to the applicant that, to the greatest extent feasible, all the existing window trim, frames, sashes, and glazing should be retained is providing that advice to the applicant.
Except that's different than what I'm talking about. Because if it's really, truly damaged, you can't retain it. And then you have to address the new version. So what I would like the board to support is a statement that says that the traditional characteristics of the windows be retained. Now, you can't get, well, you can get the upper sash made with the ears or tails, whatever. But that's not going to be a manufactured window supplied by Marvin Jellwin or any of the companies. So I don't want to tie the owners to a very expensive solution to this. I want to give them the flexibility of providing the characteristic look, which is what we're trying to preserve here, and not the specific detail. I think there are lots of places where these window frames could be repaired and retained, but you have to do it on a one-by-one basis. So,
Okay, so we have a...
Comment?
Yeah, please.
It's about the windows again, because it's really a critical part of the restoration. The company Wooden Windows in the city, that's one very good resource. But I think even when you talk about how many to the greatest extent, I think the greatest extent has to be in the main facade open to the public. If you're going to say, I just can't go any further with this restoration on these windows, if it's one that's facing the backyard or something, but I think it is extremely critical that the facade to the public, the main view of the house, and I don't think it is acceptable to say it's not available to the public because there's a bush. it has to be, you know, the facade has to be available, even if there's a, I know they've used that as, that was one other house in Professorville where it was approved based on the fact that there were high bushes, and then they immediately, after the restoration, they were all chopped down. So I don't think that helps either. But it is a sort of a difficult part and a very important part of the restoration, though.
We have a proposed motion that the project as presented would become consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards if the comments by the board summarized by staff are incorporated into this project. There's no second yet.
I would, just thinking, I think that every project is a learning curve always with our board, and how we receive this information, how we process it. And, you know, even today, this is the second time we've reviewed this material, and, you know, we can find inconsistencies and have a lot of questions, but I think maybe that calls to us that we have to come up with a format or something, and maybe that's something we can talk about in our retreat, that maybe we as a board come up with a checklist and a format for applicants so that we are sure that they give us the information that we need. It's hard for us to demand the information because we're not really asking for it. But when it's not available to us, we have a problem, or we can't understand, or so maybe that's a topic I think that we should definitely talk about. And I think this project is a great step towards that goal, and it's a great learning curve project. I think the project does have a lot of merit in that they're not tearing it down and building something new. So, and they are going to closely try to keep the historic value of the house as is. And I think that our applicant made such a great comment, defer to the professional's expertise. And she's a proven architect designer in this area. We've already admired her work. I think that we will admire this project as well. Even though it doesn't have all the bells and whistles and details that maybe we are looking for at this moment, but we entrust in her that she will carry this project out and do a good job. So with that, I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, comments about before we bring it to a vote? Okay, let's call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion signal saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously with those present. I'd like to comment that I agree with Vice Chair Wimmer that this project is in very good hands, very capable hands. I've seen many of Gordon's projects, and they come out just stellar. Gordon, thank you for your comments and patience with the board. We know that you care about historic qualities, and so thank you for your attention on this matter. Okay, that ends this agenda item. We'll move on to the next, or we can take a break as staff may recommend. So, okay.
So, excuse me, we have a walking tour scheduled to begin at 10:30. I would recommend that the board continue the retreat item to the next meeting. Okay. And that would be to a date uncertain, because we don't actually know for sure when the next meeting will occur based on our application schedule. And then to take a 10-minute recess and reconvene in the lobby at 10:30.
Okay, excellent. We'll do that. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I didn't follow. Didn't say that again. I didn't quite follow.
We're going to retreat, break for 10 minutes, and then reconvene in the front lobby of the building.
I thought you were saying you're going to postpone the retreat.
Postpone is going to be rescheduled to another meeting.
And where are we going now?
We're going to go. We're going to tour a walking tour of Professorville.
Okay. I'm not sure I can have time to take that.
Okay. Right, Matt. Yes.
And thank you. And just to note that at the end of the agenda, we have board and staff announcements, but since we'll be taking a walking tour, would ask the board if we can actually move that item up now so that we can have the announcements occur here where the public can also hear them.
Yes.
So first staff announcement is that there's a Professorville Design Guidelines Community Meeting scheduled for February 23rd from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Palo Alto Art Center meeting room. That's sort of the first public kickoff meeting for this final phase of the project. There are actually invitation notices at your places there with further details. And the second item is that there is a development application in for the South of Forest area plan, which requires, it's an application for new construction, and under the SOFA area plan, that requires a coordinated ARB, HRB review to occur. And so what we're asking the boards to do is to have a combined meeting at the March 17th ARB meeting. There will be a hearing that would be a combined ARB and HRB hearing on the item. So what we would ask is that for that to occur, there needs to be a quorum of HRB members attending that ARB meeting as official, as official board members. So, all the HRB members are certainly, entitled to attend, but the bare minimum is that a quorum needs to be there. So if there are particular HRB members that would like to be present, this could be an opportunity for that to be discussed. But just to put the board on notice that a quorum of the board members is going to be needed at the March 17th ARB meeting.
Why don't we take care of that right now? I'm available. Okay.
I'm
So-
not available. I'm out
Okay,
of town.
so far we've heard Board Member Kohler, Board Member Wimmer, Chair Bernstein, March 17th?
What day is
It's a Thursday morning,
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so far we have 3 board members that can commit. March 17th, Thursday morning, 8:30. Board member, okay, so we've got 4 committed. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Any other comments or comments by staff? Comments, closing comments or remarks?
I have a question of staff. I guess it's the community workshop on Professorville guidelines. Martin and I spent hours and hours with the previous Professorville guidelines group. Has that all been dropped and forgotten, or what's going on?
It has not been dropped and forgotten. All the previous work will be incorporated into this final next phase. And so how that will be done will be explained at that community meeting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think we're ready for our recess for 10 minutes, and then we'll reconvene in the lobby to start our walking tour. Okay.
We're going to walk from here and leave our cars, because I didn't put this, that's a good idea.
Oh, yeah.